Hi, this is Dr. P to talk about variability in game boards. Mostly tabletop games, but video games use boards as well. They just don't usually show them. An exception there is Civilization, which enables you to show the square grid or later the hex grid that it uses. Now I'm talking about boards where something actually takes place as opposed to boards that just track status. This kind of board usually depicts geospatial relationships in some way and involves maneuver or placement or both. To improve replayability, it's desirable to have a board that can change from play to play. Now, if you have a historical game, you generally don't need this variability because the game is representing the reality at the time and place that the game is showing us. Now, old-time D&Ders may remember the random dungeon tables in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, where you could roll dice and generate an entire dungeon. My brother did this once and ended up with a dungeon that mostly ran diagonally on the graph paper. Video games can use procedural generation by computer to generate boards in this way, and they can do it very fast, of course. That's often the way a 4X or RTS board is created. In effect, the computer is rolling dice against lookup tables. But for tabletop, we can't take a lot of time to do a lot of dice rolling to set up the game. We've got to have something simpler and quicker. So, variable conformation. Conformation is the shape or structure of something. The popular method in board games, which is often copied from Settlers of Catan, is to use individual hexes. Now, I don't know if Catan was the first game to use hexes. It is in fact a variation of the much older geomorphic board method. A simpler variation because you don't have to connect each individual tile together the way in geomorphic boards you have to connect the various pieces together. So during setup, hexes are laid out face down randomly within a large pattern, and then they're revealed. That gives you a different conformation every time. Another method is to have a base board that is then modified by placement of terrain or other features such as towns or places that are dangerous or places that are particularly valuable. For example, in one of my Space War games, the event cards serve a second purpose. They can be used at the start of the game to allocate where there are barren systems or systems that are of double value, and then they're shuffled again and dealt out as event cards. Catan uses a form of this in the placement of the numbers that are used for resource generation. Geomorphic boards, of which Catan's hexes are an example, usually use square boards that can be put together in various ways. The terrain features or doors or whatever it is have to mesh together, so it's not so easy to do as with a bunch of hexes. It can also be done with groups of hexes rather than individual hexes, as in one of my Space War games. And of course, the variable placement of features can be combined with the geomorphic boards. Here is an example of my Space War game. That is 3 boards put together to make one. All the boards are the same shape, and they can be put together in a variety of ways. What about exploration? In exploration, you need to hide some information until a player's piece moves there or in some other way causes the exploration to occur. If you're using hex tiles, the tile might not even be placed until the player decides to go there, as in Tikal. Or it may simply stay face down until a player goes there and turns it face up. The first method can lead to some really odd layouts and patterns, as in Eclipse, because you run out of tiles and end up with a set of tiles going way out into the nowhere and gaps much closer to the center of the galaxy in the case of Eclipse. Sometimes an underlying grid is used to limit where the tiles can be placed, I think as in Tikal again, if I recall correctly. Often, for exploration, markers are placed face down on the locations that can be explored. So the geography is known, but what is actually there, contained in the region, is not known. Most of the time, these are turned over and left in place to indicate what has been found. In others, the marker is removed and a card is drawn from a deck to determine what's there. Dice rolls used to be popular to determine contents when you were exploring, but cards have displaced them today. They're more convenient and they're quicker, even though they're more expensive. I confess I find the hex tile style fiddly and unsatisfying, but that's what Euro players are used to, and so that's what you most commonly see. Thanks for listening.